Good morning. I know people are joining, so we'll give it just a little bit more time for everyone to get in. But as you are joining, I just want you to know that we are glad that you are with us today, and we will get started here in just a second. I know that people are still joining, but for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. Uh, Good morning, everyone. My name is Mitzi Holland, and I'm the director of the Kentucky Advising Academy. And we are so glad that you all have joined us today for our webinar on navigating the first year college experience. I am joined today by our special guest, Starr Wentzel from Eastern Kentucky University and Sarah Begley from Campbellsville University, as well as our KAA coordinators, Christy Miller and Cheryl Brumley. Again, we are so glad that you are here with us, and I'm going to now turn it over to Cheryl, and she will get this webinar started. And Cheryl, take it away.
Thank you, Mitzi. As Mitzi said, welcome everyone. We want to give some time for people to join us today since we are at the top of the hour. So while we wait, we would love for you to introduce yourselves just so we can know who's in the room and who we're talking to today a little better. So if you could please take a moment, drop some information for us in the chat. We'd like to know your name, your organization, and your title. So where are you coming from and what do you do? We appreciate you for making the time today to be with us. We have a lot of great information that we're going to be talking about today in terms of navigating the first year experience. If you're here for ELA credit as well, that is available at the end of our webinar, and we'll be sharing details on how to get that at the end of our time together. So thank you guys for popping that information in the chat. I'm going to give us just one more minute, so keep popping that information in the chat if you haven't just yet. If you're just now joining us, welcome, welcome. I see our participants still being let in. So on the agenda for today, we have a brief introduction to the Kentucky Advising Academy, and then I'm going to be passing it over to our guests for today's webinar. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to drop it in the chat, and we'll share those questions before we end today in a brief Q&A portion. And then we're going to wrap up by going over some ways you can stay connected to the Kentucky Advising Academy, as well as share the survey so we can continue to evaluate our work, as well as make sure you get your free, almost mix them together, ELA or Frisky credit. So to get us started, the overview to KAA. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're joining us for the umpteenth time, also welcome. We're so glad to have recurring faces as well as new ones. But just to give a little bit of background for those new people that might be joining us today, the Kentucky Advising Academy exists to support educators in providing students with equitable access to post-secondary advising for successful transitions from secondary education to their desired careers. And the KAA does this by providing comprehensive professional learning sessions, online resources, and networking opportunities centered around post-secondary advising. So for example, the webinar you're here at today. Some of the ways that we are able to engage practitioners are our monthly well-advised podcast, as well as the webinars that we offer, both on timely post-secondary topics, and change every month to month. We also have our comprehensive online toolkit that you might have seen. If you haven't seen it yet, we're going to share more information about it at the end of our time today. And if you've joined us for any of these offerings before, whether in person or virtually, we thank you, because that's what makes this work so impactful. So with that, I would like to introduce our guest for today. Joining us is Starr Wentzel, Director of First Year Courses and Learning Communities at Eastern Kentucky University, and Sarah Begley, Director of Academic Support at Campbellsville University. I want to thank you both so much for being here today with us. And if you each would like to take some time to introduce yourself a little further, and then I'll let you take it away with your portion of the presentation.
Hello, like Cheryl said, my name is Starr Wentzel, and I am the director for first year courses at Eastern Kentucky University. I actually joke saying that I am an eternal colonel. I came to EKU as a freshman over 20 years ago. I'm from Pike County, so I am a first generation student from rural Eastern Kentucky, and my college experience really changed my life, and I had such a great experience that now I have the opportunity to help students transition from high school into college. So it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. First year courses includes student success seminars. So all of our incoming freshmen are required to take a seminar that helps with that transition from high school to college. And so I have the wonderful opportunity to get to work with first year students every day.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Begley, and I am the Director of Academic Support here at Campbellsville University. I've had the privilege and honor of serving in higher education for over 17 years now. I did have a brief time where I served in K-12 public education, in special education specifically. But my passion and my calling is definitely higher ed, and I'm thankful to be a part of this morning's discussion.
Okay. Cheryl, are you going to start the screen now?
It's already advanced.
Oh, I can't see it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry. So we're going to kind of start off this conversation, really kind of looking at the differences between high school and college. And I think that a lot of times we kind of already have this idea that students absolutely understand what the differences are, but whenever they get to college, things can be a little bit overwhelming. And so one thing that's really different, and we're especially seeing since COVID, is really trying to teach students to advocate for themselves. It's very important for students to learn that if they're having an issue, then they're the ones that need to be able to speak to a professor about it. In college, we treat them as adults, and they're the ones that, are required to go to class. They're the ones that are required to communicate. But we do sometimes still have parents who are the ones that we'll even email a professor like, my student is not coming to class today. And so we really want to help students understand that this is their opportunity to be an adult, and that they really need to start advocating for themselves. Another piece of that, though, is also helping them understand that they need to do the things. And so I think it's really important for them in high school to understand. I know a lot of times it's really easy to just put them, I can do it faster myself, so I'm just going to do it for my student. But really letting them be the one that's doing it, having them be the one that fills out their FAFSA, have them being the ones that fill out their college applications. We have a lot of students, when we ask them what did they put on their application, they're like, I don't know, somebody else filled it out for me. And so it's really important that our students have these experiences, so they are the ones that are in the driver's seat and they really understand some of those expectations. Another really important piece is the time management. This is the first time that they're getting up for themselves, or getting up in the morning. Sometimes a lot of students still say that, that their parents did help them do that. But also they're the ones that have to make sure that they go to class on time, and nobody's going to watch them if they are not in class. So it's just really important for them to understand the schedule also looks different. So in K-12, you're typically there, like 8 until 3, but in college that can look completely different. You can have class starting at 9 and be done by noon, and then you have all this extra free time. But then that's when students really start to struggle because they're not using that time wisely, to get their homework done, to study. There's still the social aspect. So, it's really important. We want students to gain that independence, and we want them to be able to, adapt to a new environment. But we also need them to understand that there are the expectations that, if college was easy, everybody would do it. And so they're going to come here and they're going to have to put in the work, and it is on them to be successful.
I think we're ready for the next slide, Cheryl. So specifically, I like to, encourage our high school educators and our parents of students and guardians of students to help students recognize that college is far from the 13th year of high school. It is a big culture shock. I equate college, to going to a foreign country. You have to learn a new language. You have to understand cultural norms that are a part of the collegiate experience that they may have not been exposed to in high school. And so similarly, with helping them create a sense of self-agency, we need to, as much as possible, encourage our students to be in the driver's seat, as Starr was speaking about. In high school, we remind our students of their responsibilities and of their homework. In college, that is just not the case. They are expected to read and understand the college syllabus, understand that that is basically a contract between the course, the student, and the instructor. It outlines the roadmap of how to be successful in that particular class. It's very uncommon that students are used to even understanding what a syllabus is. Very few high schools that I've experienced introduce a syllabus in K-12. So taking time to help students understand that they're in the driver's seat. I like to think of it as the tandem bike analogy. So much of our role as parents and guardians and educators, we've assumed the front of the bike for so many years for these students, and the students have been on the back. Now it's time to shift them on the front of the bike and us being support system from the back. And it develops now in these critical years, especially in high school, freshman, junior, senior high school, where we can help develop a balance of challenge and support. Sometimes it's so heavy on the support that when they're first exposed to a level of challenge or cognitive dissonance here in the college experience, it creates that fight or flight mode for them. So how can we, prepare them effectively to take that ownership and to be less hands-on ourselves, so that we put that responsibility on our students? So explaining the course syllabus, explaining that our professors, they have more students than our K-12 instructors do. And so they may not have the personal relationships that their K-12 faculty had in seeing them in the ballpark and knowing their families and their situations outside of the classroom, where our faculty are amazing and they're very engaged, but it's harder to connect with the students because of the number and the volume and the limited time they get to see with them until those established relationships occur. So it's really important to help them develop that self-advocacy as early as possible to help them with these critical transitions. So how do we then prepare our students? Again, we can really put the students in the driver's seat. I think of that tandem bicycle, taking a step off, going to the back and putting them in charge of the handlebars, which can be a little scary, but it will set them up for success, I promise you.
And then make sure that we prepare prepare the students for the rigor of college. Again, there is a difference in kind of the magnitude of what assignments look like. And again, we've seen more of this, since COVID has happened, that students have come in and they're like, well, like these things weren't necessarily required, or we didn't have to do these things. And we're like, okay, like, well, we understand that, but we also have to prepare you to do these things. So we've been really trying to meet students where they are. And it's part of, the learning loss. It's because of that online component, where we're seeing it, within their communication skills. And I know that you all are seeing it, in K-12 as well. And I think we all just have to, work together to really try to help our students, and meet them again where they are, but really helping our students to master those hard skills. I was talking to actually a coworker yesterday, and I said, it's always funny. I was like, because students will come to college and they'll say, well, I don't like this class because it's hard. And like they want it to be an easy class, and they want all of their classes to be easy. And they don't like the class if it's challenging. And so, but part of it has to be challenging because whenever they leave with a college degree, they're expected to be experts in their field. And so just really helping students understand that it is not just that 13th year of high school, but it is them going in to be trained to be an expert in the field and the career that they want to be.
And similarly, in preparation to helping prepare our students the best we can for college, really helping them develop those self-agency skills as early as possible. So for example, time management. So many of our students come to college and have never used a planner or an agenda book. And so even taking time now to help them understand systems and strategies for time management. Some people really value keeping everything on their phone in a calendar app. That's wonderful. I'm a pen and paper gal. I love having my physical agenda, having things written down, my to-do list, crossing them off. That keeps me responsible for the things I have to manage in my day. So I talk to students about time management, making sure they're setting themselves up for success early on. The pace of college is also very different than the pace of high school. They have to come prepared to hit the ground running, because missing a day of a college course is not equivalent to missing a day of school in K-12. The content that you miss, the connections that you miss, all of the things that you have not engaged with while you were out at that class will really set you back quite a bit. So as much as possible, helping them understand, have all of even their materials, that the first week of school is not the time to go get their notebooks and their pencils. They need to have it before they go to class. They can't even expect that our faculty are going to hand them pencil or paper, which is the expectation in many of our K-12. The pencils are there in the front of the room, the extra sheets of paper. They have to be responsible for even their school materials, which is a major shift for many of our students, and helping them model note-taking effectively now in our K-12 classrooms. What does that look like? Well, maybe modeling the Cornell system of note-taking to help students understand effective note-taking strategies that they can translate into the college experience when they get here. Many times they've not had to take notes in high school, but they will be required to take notes. If they want to be successful, they should take notes to look back on and make study strategies with. Help them understand how to create a study guide based off the notes that they take. Help them understand how they can use note cards to study definitions front and back. All these things that we can help train them now in advance and in preparation for the college experience is going to give them a critical advantage and a leg up to make sure that their footing is in place on day one before they stumble and fall. It's a lot easier to recover when they have those strategies at least somewhat in place. They've been exposed to them. And then helping them understand what goal setting is. They might not have ever set goals before. They might have only thought about getting to this critical point in their education, which is huge. It's a huge success story for them. But how do we continue that momentum for them so that they are successful and that they do walk across the stage and earn a degree or get a certificate in a vocational program? Whatever it is their dream, we want to make sure they're equipped to adequately, go after it.
And then another thing to help students really understand is that college professors do care. We hear a lot from students whenever they come in and they're like, well, I was told that nobody would care. Or I will even ask the question, like, how many have you have heard when you come to college that nobody's going to care about you? And over 90% of the class typically raises their hand. And I think that message really puts up a barrier before students even get here or get to college, because they already are coming in to a new environment. They're anxious because they're away from their families for their first time, and then they're coming to a place that they've been told that nobody cares. And that's absolutely not true. We do really have a genuine investment, in these students, and we want them to be successful. Kind of what we do with our student success seminars is really try to make that instructor kind of be the student's person and a connection that they can hold on to for the next 4 years while they continue their degree and have, a point of contact that they can always ask a question. But there are some differences, such as Sarah said, we don't always go through and say, remember, you have this right here tomorrow, or remember in a month, you have to turn in your final paper. They do have to understand and start to learn those expectations and that time management and taking responsibility in doing the things that are required of them. So we want to give them grace, but also hold them accountable. And so I think everybody tries to find, that sweet spot for that, but we do have to start holding our students accountable, but also respecting them as well. And so making sure that they understand the expectations of them. Because again, our goal is for when they leave our institutions is to be prepared to go into this workforce. And part of that is, helping build them up and helping them build those skills.
We're seeing an influx of mental health needs on our college campus. And I think that is not isolated to EKU and Campbellsville. It's across the board. And I know our K-12 educators are also seeing that influx in mental health concerns. And I think that has a major implication of student success here at the college level, specifically attendance issues. It's easy to just say, I don't need to go to the 8 a.m. class. I can miss one time. And then it become a pattern of behavior, especially if they're not skilled in time management and energy management. I also like to highlight where maybe they're staying up way late till 2 a.m. because they're trying to find a sense of this newfound freedom of not having a bedtime, not having a guardian potentially there to encourage them to go to bed, or lights out even. No one's going to do that in a residential campus housing environment. There is no set bedtime. So the students really have to develop that self-agency, and that one particular area of time management has implications then on attendance and academic performance and academic alertness in class. If they're not sleeping, they're probably not doing well in staying alert and focused. Many students don't see the need to go to class as a sense of urgency. Where in K-12, if they were there and they missed school, their parents got a phone call from the truancy office saying, your student is not in school. No one from the college environment is going to call that student's family and say, Joe wasn't in school today. Joe wasn't in our math class. One, it's against FERPA, but also that's just the change in culture that students may not understand. There's also a sense of, well, it's a deadline, but I'm sure it's more of a suggestion. Instead of, no, the hard and fast deadline is the paper is due on Monday by midnight. That's not a suggestion. That is a strict adherence to the syllabus and the contract that you were aware of. So a lot of times students will fail to understand how critical deadlines and assignments are because they have had that thought process of, it's okay, I'll be able to make it up, or there will be, a level of expectation that I can, put this off or do it later. And that may not be the case. There may be some grace, but there often will not be if there's a deadline for a syllabus assignment. The level of social anxiety we see, students just by and large have never had to make a phone call to make their own doctor's appointment, or call and request something that they needed, such as a transcript, or make an advising appointment. And so how does that look? Just this week, I had a student of mine say, the professor didn't text me back on the number that you gave me. And I said, oh, okay. I should have shared with you that is the campus landline. That is the professor's office phone number. And they don't have the capability to text or receive or send text messages there. So students but that was a light bulb moment for me as an educator in the college environment. I wouldn't have assumed they would have thought to send a text message to the number I gave, just thinking it was a cell phone. It was the office landline. So helping them understand that it's okay. You can go to that professor's office hours. You can take a look at their syllabus and see their email address and their preferred method of contact. And just being that guide on the side to help students kind of bridge that gap of independence, and where they haven't had that level of independence in the past potentially. And then difficulty with conflict management. There's a lot of moments for cognitive dissonance, especially in their first year, the first time they fail an exam. That can really create a sense of fight or flight for our students, that feeling like I've never failed before. I've always got straight A's, and here I'm not good enough. I'm not able to perform at the collegiate level, which is just not true. But helping them understand that failure is a real part of college. And one failure doesn't mean that you are a failure. It just gives you opportunity to learn and to grow and to lean into that challenge, to get feedback about how you can effectively move forward instead of staying stuck or feeling paralyzed. So I think mental health is a really large need for our educators to be aware of, and helping our students proactively instead of reactively is such an important thing we need to consider.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of, actually, Cheryl, will you go back? Sorry. So yeah, we are seeing a lot with the students being having the increased stress and anxiety. And I think a lot of it does go to students getting to college and things being more difficult. Students have had there's been COVID, they've had participation awards. They haven't really had the opportunity. A lot of them have not had the opportunity to fail. And so whenever they come to college and they do fail, maybe that first exam, what we are seeing is that students will literally just go back to their residence hall and just close off. They quit going to all their other classes. They quit interacting. They're not going, leaving their residence halls to even go eat, because they're really kind of going into this almost depressive state. And so really helping students, we've really tried to be focused on coping skills and stress management to help students say, okay, like if you failed this exam, what should you do next time to help you maybe do better? So why don't you maybe talk to your professor and talk about how the exam went and how you could study different? Maybe start a study group, maybe go to a student success center or some sort of tutoring lab to be able to get assistance and not just go in that hole. But I think a lot of times what happens is that students get overwhelmed, and I think we're all kind of the same way. We get overwhelmed. We have this to-do list and we don't even know where to start because we're already we have so much anxiety. And we know that if we just get started, if we just start knocking them off, then marking that thing off that list, like, makes you feel like you can breathe a little bit more. And so, really working with students to find out ways that they can help relieve some of their stress and anxiety. And it goes back to time management and study skills. Like, all of these things that we keep talking about are so very much, tied together. We're also seeing a lot of students trauma dumping. So they're coming in, they're having a conversation, like, they need to speak to somebody, and they just dump everything. And so helping students understand, but they've had some serious, a lot of them have had some of these experiences that's how they kind of comprehend and how they express themselves. So helping students try to navigate some of that, and really helping them figure out, like, what do you want to come out of this? Like, what information can we take? What resources can we provide you to really help you the best way we can? We're also seeing lack of communication skills. And that is, students just won't come to class. I had a conversation with a student this week, and I'm like, okay, well, have you spoken to your professor? And she's like, no. I'm like, you probably should. Just reach out to them, tell them that this right here has happened. She's like, well, they don't like me. And I'm like, well, one, how do you know that? You've never even spoken to them, obviously. But she said, well, they gave me this feedback on my assignment. And I was like, well, okay, let's look at this feedback. And we looked at it. It said, great job. Next time, make sure you include this. And I'm like, they're just giving you feedback. Like, none of that. They said you did great. They are giving you constructive criticism for you to improve your score the next time. But the student automatically took that as, they don't like me. And so, I told her, I was like, you really need to communicate with your professor. I was like, if you just don't show up for my class, I'm just going to assume that you just skipped it. I said, or you could email me and tell me, what's going on. We don't know what we don't know. So unless a student communicates with us, we can't help them until, we kind of have, a lot of times we can offer them extra resources, and we can get them some of the help that they need. And we're also seeing students really struggle with some of those executive functions. And again, that's problem solving, self-control, time management. And so, just really trying to, again, Sarah's the one that said this, and I think we've just kind of driven it throughout the whole presentation, but really putting them in the driver's seat. If a student comes and asks you a question and you know that they haven't looked at it because it's a really easy answer to find, then say, okay, well, where do you think we might be able to get this information? And then put them back in place to have control for them to find the answers. Technology, if a student can't get an answer like within 5 seconds, then they just give up. It's not there. I can't do it. As opposed to, okay, well, I need to know this information, and really kind of diving in and again, problem solving. And I think, again, all of those really interweave in with one another. So we also wanted to talk about some of the different things that our institutions are doing, and some of the best practices, strategies, for advising. And so for EKU, we have students come for orientations before they come. So in the summer, they come for orientation. They get to meet with their academic advisors. They leave with a schedule. They find out, financial aid information, which is a whole lot of information to get in one day. But it's a really great experience for students. We also have what's called Biggie Welcome. And so students move in the week, like Wednesday of the week before classes start, they can start moving in. And it's kind of like a 3-day event where there's multiple things for students to attend. They will go to various events. There will be some educational components. They'll have a an orientation leader or a colonel's crew member. So they will have somebody that will help them, show them where their classes are, and they'll be able to, be able to ask somebody questions to help them be prepared for those first days of classes. Again, we have all of our students take a student success seminar. These are a 3 credit hour course that students will take. And we talk about time management and study skills and campus resources and financial literacy and information literacy. We try to really make sure that we are helping students in that transition from high school to college and helping them gain the skills that they need to be successful while they are here and then in their future careers. And then we also provide a lot of wraparound services, especially for our students who come in as Success First. We have those in learning communities where we cohort them into classes together, and then we have them paired with peer mentors, student peer mentors, and we give them the same academic advisor. We also have living learning communities on our campus where within housing, they can live within a certain population of students. And so we are really trying to make sure that we are supporting our students in the best way possible. We want them to be successful while we're here. We understand what it looks like coming in and how we felt whenever we left our homes to come to college. And so we really strive to just make sure that we are meeting students where they are to help them be successful.
Yes, and similarly at Campbellsville University, we have a lot of support services embedded in our campus and our culture to ensure that students can be successful and have the resources they need to help equip them. Every student who enters the university is paired with a success coach. A success coach is a staff member in the academic support center where I serve that helps really be that guide on the side for the first year and sophomore students. So they're paired with a staff member who's the success coach, and students are also paired with a faculty advisor in their particular major. So they have that faculty contact early on within their academic discipline, but they're given a little bit more support for the first and sophomore year as they navigate the college experience in Campbellsville University specifically. We do have a new student orientation program as well that helps them introduce, the different things they'll need to access. Like we use Moodle to access our courses for our course management. So they'll learn to navigate Moodle. Even email is a new thing for a lot of our students. So navigating something other than a Gmail account, recognizing that the university email is the official way that our university will communicate with them. So that is something that we take pride in helping them understand. Every student has an OR 100 class. It's a one credit hour class taught by a faculty member within the academic discipline that they have chosen as a major. And so again, we really believe in connecting students to faculty early on so that they recognize that faculty are there to help them succeed, that they want to invest in their students, they want them to succeed, and that they're not scary people. So the OR 100 is a fantastic way for our faculty to be with our first year students and our students to see, oh, okay, this person is critically invested in who I am as a person on this campus and wants me to do well. And they can be a trusted point of contact that I can go to. We also have an introductory studies program that helps our students who are college eligible but not yet college ready with regard to meeting ACT benchmarks. So if the student needs any remedial coursework, specifically in reading and math, they are in a cohort of students that take a university success class that really enhances their understanding of those critical self-agency skills that we've highlighted today. The time management, the study skills, how to access library resources, because the library is often new for a lot of our students. Many of our K-12 have done great things with media centers, but how do they just go into a library on their own and utilize the librarians as fantastic resources that they are? We also have a service here at Campbellsville University called Early Alert, and that is something that our faculty is able to report online any critical academic performance or attendance issues that they see could be a pattern or trend for a student's success or academic performance. So it allows us to triage critical issues in a very timely way and then conduct outreach to make sure that those support services are in place. Does that student need to be directed to our campus counseling center? Does that student need a doctor in the area and just hasn't been able to find a family practitioner? Did they know that we have a clinic here on campus? So it acts as a triage point for us to really get the student to what they need to be the most successful.
So to kind of just sum a lot of the things that we've talked about up is, again, just really putting students back in that driver's seat, teaching them some of those skills that they need, allow them to be the one that is, answering the questions, completing the applications, and just really helping them prepare to do the work whenever they come to college. Teach them the skills that are needed to be successful. So time management, communication, problem solving, critical thinking. I'm part of, with CPE, I'm part of the Kentucky Graduate Profile Initiative right now, where we've looked at the 10 essential skills that employers are saying that they want students to have when they graduate. And so those go back to critical thinking and problem solving and quantitative reasoning and communication. And so again, those are those skills that students really need. And so if we can just keep putting those in front of them and telling them, these are the things that you're going to need in your future careers. And that's why we keep honing in on those. Acknowledge that college will be different and that it can be difficult because it is a different caliber of learning. We want students to be successful when they're here. Sometimes students will come in and they've never had to study before, and then they get here and get to college, and then they take a class and it's taught completely different than they have been taught in high school. I know whenever I came, I had a professor and all of the exams were most correct. Like every answer was most correct. I had never taken a test like that before, and I failed my first one my freshman year. And I had never had to study like that before. And so I did go to the professor and I did go to our tutoring center on campus to kind of talk about, like what I needed to do to improve. So it is really important to help students understand that it's okay if they aren't necessarily successful like in the beginning, but we want to teach them the skills to be successful. So I think that's just another really important aspect of it. And then encourage students to be open to new opportunities, ask questions, try new things, meet new people, utilize the resources that campuses have to offer. College is a time for students to really find out their kind of their true selves. I know that's where I met all of my best friends. That's where I kind of changed my major 5 times, where I figured out what I wanted to do. And so it's just a great opportunity for students, but they need to be open to it and, encourage them to, get involved. But again, really encourage students to utilize the resources that are available to them on campuses. Like Sarah mentioned, like we also have a student success center, which helps with early alerts, and they provide mentors. And we have, multiple offices for students, and we have, health services, we have counseling services. And so there are so many things that are available to students. We just really want to encourage them to utilize those as much as possible.
Thank you both for that amazing discussion. Starr, I think you said something. Really, we've hit on it multiple times throughout this presentation, but you said something at the end that this isn't just skills, excuse me, this isn't just skills like for college or like expectations of college. It's expectations of employers and holding a job someday as well. And so that's kind of a really important thing to keep in mind. Like, we're not just preparing students for a college or post-secondary education, but that we're also preparing them for their life and what that life will be. So at this point, we'd like to open it up for any possible questions. If you have any questions for Starr and Sarah, feel free to come off mute or pop them in the chat. We do have a few minutes for that. I'm gonna let this, you guys. I loved your personal examples that you shared. So I would like to ask, to get us started, of each of you, when it comes to like the number one thing, I know we kind of hit like put them in the driver's seat. But what is I guess a recent example that you've experienced of a student really coming to you for help, and like what could, if you could impart, I guess, especially our secondary advisors, with like a piece of knowledge of like, here's the thing to give, or here's the number one tip I would have you help a student with. Like, what does it look like to put a student in the driver's seat, I guess, if you're on the secondary level? Not to put you guys totally on the spot.
Sure, I'll
$1 million
speak to that.
question.
I had that's a great question. I had a young man come in for advising the other day. Well, I'm actually not his listed advisor. I am an advisor for undecided students on our campus. But this young man had already met with his faculty advisor. And I said, "Hey, are you registered for classes?" And he said, "Well, I met with my faculty advisor, but I don't know how to put those in to get registered." So I could have taken control and entered them in and been done in lickety split. But instead I said, "Do you care to log into TigerNet, which is our, on campus learning system?" I had him sit down in my very seat, pull up his TigerNet, and then I helped him navigate the page. But he was in the driver's seat. He was in the seat. He had control of the mouse. And by doing it, I know that he was making connections in his brain of, okay, this is how I'll do it next time. It's also hard because you only do it one time in the fall and one time in the spring. So they sometimes do need reminders, but that was a prime example of, yes, I could have just entered his classes. I could have even given him a sheet of paper with the step-by-step directives, which would have also been beneficial, but just saying, sit down here, bridging that level of challenge and support. So he didn't feel completely isolated. He still knew that I was there to assist him if he needed it, but he was able to navigate it completely on his own. And we were able to get his schedule. I printed it out for him. It was a beautiful moment. So that was one example recently for me.
And I think that also speaks to like just being, I guess, a trusted adult on the campus, and something that could be kind of, when you look at like what a post-secondary advising system is or looks like, a part of that is capacity, and how do you build that capacity? And part of that is having multiple adults that know the process and know how to help, because like you said, you weren't his advisor, but you were still able to like kind of, I guess, pitch hit like and step in and guide him through that process. Starr, I don't know if you had an example or something to share as well.
I think for me, something that's really important for students is to really kind of talk through things with them, like really listen, and hear what they're saying. I met with a student, this week, and I was like, "What do you want your outcome of this to be?" And they were like, "Well, I don't know." And I'm like, "Well, what is the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish?" And so we talked through that, and she kind of answered a majority of her questions herself, because I didn't necessarily give her the answers. And I was like, okay, like, again, it's that problem solving, it's that conflict management, it's those, communication skills, it's critical thinking of, okay, like, no, now how are you going to handle this situation? It was kind of a stressful situation that she was going into. So, how are you going to handle that? How are you going to prepare for that? Are you going to make notes before you go in? What kind of questions are you going to ask? And so again, I could have said, well, I think that you should just say this, but instead I wanted to start with her really understanding what she wanted that outcome to be. And so I think sometimes just slowing down and really trying to listen to what they want, because again, we're trying to prepare these students for future careers or future experiences. And some of these students are like, well, I've never had to deal with this. I don't like how this makes me feel. And then you're like, well, okay, like every situation in your life, every work experience is not necessarily you're not gonna love how you feel. And so I think it's important for students to still learn those experiences, but also learn how to navigate them, learn how to cope with them, learn how to process them. So then they are better prepared whenever they enter the workforce.
And I think it also invites for a moment of like transparency from us as the adults in the room to say, I have moments like that too. I still have I'll like job interviews or just things where you're like, I don't necessarily know what to say. And so you do kind of have to work through that, and just like the preparation that sometimes has to take place, even when you're doing something you might not fully be enthused or excited about doing, how that takes its own type of navigation and looks different. We had someone in the chat from Ms. Wanda Shaw that she fully agrees with putting the students in the driver's seat early on in their academic career, and that it helps them take ownership of their lives, be it academic, personal, or careers. And yeah, I 100% agree that is and I really love the term driver's seat too, because it's not that students don't want to be successful, and it's not that the adults on K through 12 or college campuses don't want them to be successful. It's often like you don't know what you don't know until you get there. And then how do you navigate that? I do think that what you said about they're told college, like they won't care. And that is kind of misconstrued, because like I feel like I've heard people say that, and I think that was told to me. And it's true that they're not going to care in the same way, but they will care. They might not, the caring comes with like, they're not going to care about like, if you didn't turn this in on time, then like, I might not be the one that's like directly reaching out to you, as you guys said, because I'm just assuming you decided not to do it. Versus the suggestion of a deadline. And Sarah, I love the story about the student texting the landline phone. That's like a great because it is just like oh yeah kind of moment of something I would not have thought about, but like a good reminder to like, oh yeah, that's something that like that texting is such a first like modality of communication for the generation of students that we have now, that like once you said it, I was like, that makes total sense, but I would have not thought to specify either. I would have just thought call them.
We're having more students even call and message in Teams, like Microsoft Teams. And so students will call, and it goes to your cell phone at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And so we've had that happen a couple of times. So I think it is really interesting of how they communicate. But also, we really try to push, like, how do you communicate and how do you properly email? Because they still use that text language and that text slang. And I always say, like, would you email this to your boss? If the answer is no, then you probably should rewrite it. Because again, and I don't mind, I will send it back and be like, I would like you to fix this email, and then I'll respond. And I know sometimes that can even kind of sound harsh, but but we also do have to teach them that, and I can keep giving them the pass. Or a lot of times I'll just say, next time when you email this, make sure that you include these things. And typically by the time we get to the end of the semester, we finally we're usually almost there, but it is trying to get students to really that text language.
Yes, Lori Beth in the chat said they don't like to call. I feel like it's not just call. I think sometimes it's any like in-person interpersonal communication. Because I've had students in courses I've taught where they very much did the trauma dumping in an email. And then like, so like that exchange happens, that which is great. Like I want them to email me. I want to say, yes, if you will show up, I want to work with you. I want you to succeed. And then they show up to class and they come in and then they leave and they don't say anything. Or like I linger where I'm kind of expecting to like, you want to come over here and like chat with me a little bit, or I've said, can you stick behind? And they just, sometimes it's like this look of terror of like, now I have to talk about this to you in person. So that's kind of a barrier that you also have to like, I feel like we're also navigating and working with, of like, how do we make you comfortable to talk to me in person, to share the same things that you were sharing in an email or via a text. Well, thank you again to both of you, Starr and Sarah. It was great having you guys on our webinar. We're going to share a few final tidbits and then wrap us up for the day. Or not the day, I guess, for the morning, for this webinar. Day is certainly not over once this is it. All right, so I just wanted to take a moment to share one of the, it's not new, it's been around for a bit now, but it might be new to you, which is why we share it every one of our webinars. So we have our post-secondary advising toolkit. You can access this through the link that is there on the screen or the QR code. This is an online resource and is designated to support all post-secondary advising systems and to really serve as a hub for advisors all across the Commonwealth. So the toolkit allows any user to gain more insight into topics such as career and academic advising, student development and belonging, and much, much more. And each topic housed in the toolkit also has quick guides and start here guide documents. And these are curated and designed in a way to give you a starting point when navigating all kinds of various post-secondary advising topics. And in addition to that, you'll also find all of our other resources on the toolkit, such as our partnership guidebook and our new digital learning library, which I'll share about in just a little bit. So we encourage you to take some time to explore our toolkit, bookmark it if you need to, because we want you to use this for all of your post-secondary advising needs. So as I said, now available is our first video or module in our on-demand learning series. If you go to the KAA toolkit, you will see we are currently in the process of building out a digital learning library. And our first module's topic of partnerships is now available online. And most of these modules are short, very easily digestible videos on the topic, and also sharing with you more resources for you to use in your post-secondary advising practice. Something we need help from you on is that KAA is searching and compiling the best post-secondary advising practices and success stories to share statewide. And we'd love to know what is working for you and your students. So if you're doing something great, or you know a colleague that's doing something great and you want to brag on them, we want you to share that with us. And what we need for you to do that is just a 2 or 3 paragraph description, short description of the event, where it took place, when, who was targeted, and what any other pertinent information around that. And a picture or video that highlighted what was going on. So if you're holding FAFSA events or college application events or scholarship nights, anything that you're doing in your school, in your district to serve post-secondary success, we want to hear about it. And you're going to submit that experience by May 30th to mitzi.holland@ky.gov with the subject Bright Spots. As we end our time together, I want to encourage you to please stay connected with the Kentucky Advising Academy. Up-to-date information can always be found, as I just mentioned, on our toolkit and website, and all of this has been sent in the chat for you to click on and navigate as needed. But this is where you're going to find out about important communications. You can subscribe to our communication emails, get updates about podcasts, webinars, and any other information on KAA events and resources that are coming out and being shared. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter. And we often share about upcoming events and advising information on those channels as well. Last but not least, you can also find us on YouTube, which is where we'll be posting today's webinar for anyone who missed it live. And you can also find our past webinars as well by searching Kentucky Advising Academy. There is also a page on our toolkit where these YouTube videos and recordings of past webinars are shared directly. Last but definitely not least, we ask you to complete the survey so we can continue to improve the Kentucky Advising Academy as well as all of our offerings. This is how we process your ELA credit as well, so please use the QR code or link on the screen to complete the form. The link is also being added in the chat, and we'll use this form to email your certificate of participation, but we also greatly appreciate your feedback in our evaluation. Whether you need the ELA credit or not, it helps us improve and continue to get better. With that, we are done for this morning. We hope to see you at future events, and we thank you for your participation and joining us today. And also, again, thank you to Starr and Sarah for such great discussion about navigating the first year experience of our students in post-secondary.